Okay, we're back on. Mr. Cornell, your COVID 19 teacher here, 130. Going to be doing some geometry, perpendicular lines through 2 points. So let's get this set up. Let's get everybody joined in. So if you are new to this, you can always go to cimath.com. You can go to the geometry tab and print out the Unit 9 notes and follow along with me with what I would like to do is kind of go through the lessons with you, and then the next day or the following day, whenever we stream again, the homework packet that's on there, we can put those up on the website with the answers, so you can kind of check them or use them as you go, and then you can just kind of answer any questions that you want to answer, ask me from there, and then I can go over those ones with you. So if you have the packet, this is the page we're going to be doing lesson 4. If you don't have the packet, then you can just jump on cimath.com and open it up and follow along, or just grab a piece of paper and just kind of copy down the notes as we go, or sketch what we're doing. You don't have to write down the whole problems. Okay, so let's start with perpendicular bisector. Now, you don't have a compass, and I'm sure it's going to be next to impossible for me to try to use a compass right now on here to try to create a perpendicular bisector. Let's see how good this goes. So to create a perpendicular bisector, what we're going to do is we'll go kind of past halfway like this. Okay, we will go and we'll make a mark at the top. You can make a mark at the bottom. Flip the calculator, the compass around, mark over here, and mark down there. And then after you do that, if you take a straight edge and go through those lines or those marks you made, you just created a perpendicular bisector. So now remember what that means. To be a perpendicular bisector is to be perpendicular. We know that right here is going to be 90 degrees. And to be a bisector means we just cut this in half. So back in the past, with a compass, I went over with you guys how to create the perpendicular bisector. Now let's do that on the coordinate plane, or using some of the formulas that we learned in the last few days. So here we go with an example number 2. So write an equation of a line that is perpendicular bisector of the line segment having endpoints -3, 1, and 3, 5. So to find the midpoint, remember all we have to do is do x1 plus x2 divided by 2, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Remember this x1 and y1, they come from the points. So the first point would be labeled x1 and y1, and then your second point would be labeled x2 with y2. And then if you're going to kind of plug those in, you're going to be doing 3 plus 3 divided by 2. And for the y's, you're going to be doing -1 plus 5 divided by 2. So 3 plus 3 divided by 2 would be 6 divided by 2, which is 3. And -1 plus 5 is 4 divided by 2. So the midpoint is going to be 3, 2. Okay. Now they want us to identify the slope. So y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. That would be 5 minus -1, and for the y's, and then for the x's, it's going to be 3 minus 3. 5 minus -1 is 6. 3 minus 3 is 0. Now, if you tried to plug this into your calculator, you're going to get an error because there is no slope for a line that the denominator is 0. So remember, a line of no slope looks like this. It is a vertical line. So now to be his perpendicular, instead of being a horizontal line, a vertical line, you're going to be a horizontal line. It would look like this. So these guys right here, they are going to be perpendicular. Now, what's the name of this line? If you were graphing this over here, well, all lines that go horizontally are y equals lines. So y equals lines that look like this, remember, are zero slopes. So it's going to be a zero slope. Okay. So now the question is, what is the equation of the line? All right, so now let's watch what all this looks like from over here. 3, -1. Stop. Who cares where Jonathan was? And 3, 5. 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Somewhere. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I gotta go up one. All right, so there's 3, 5. So there's my line right there. If you then connected that line, there it is. Now, if you did not know the formula, did not know any of this, well, to find the middle, we can just count because it's a straight line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. That's how I know I'm the midpoint. So where am I? I'm at 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. That's my midpoint right there. 3, 2. So to be a bisector, we just cut that in half. Now, if I'm going to be perpendicular to that, it would just be a line that has to go through the midpoint to be a perpendicular line bisector. And there you go. That would be the answer if you did not know any of your formulas right here. And now what would be the equation of this line? Well, he's crossing the y-axis at 1, 2. So the equation of the line is y equals 2. Okay, so this is kind of your general idea of a perpendicular bisector with x and y equals lines. So let's go here and do a question that you'd actually have to do in class or on a quiz or something. So it says, write an equation of a line that is perpendicular bisector of the line segment having these endpoints. So let's start on the graph. So let's graph -2, 7. 1. There it is there. There's -2, 7. And then 8, 1. Okay, so here are your segments there. Okay. Now this one is not as easy as the last one because, well, you can't just sit here and count the distance between the two lines because it's not a straight line. So one of the things that I can do, oh, I know. Yes, you're going to have homework. I said 8, 1. It's 8, -1. It should be over here. Okay. Let's jump with -2 and 7, and then 8, -1. So there you go. There. That's better. 8, -1. All right, so now let's figure it out. I need to find the middle. To be a perpendicular bisector, it's going to do something like that. Okay, so I have to find this middle, that midpoint, and then I have to figure out what the perpendicular is. So let's do that. One of the ways to do that if you don't know all of your formulas is to count the slope. Okay, so you want to count the distance that you go from here to there, and that is going to be a distance of 8. Okay, then you want to count the distance from here to there, and then that distance there is going to be a -10. Well, if you want the midpoint of that, well, just cut it in half. So half of 8 would be 4, and then half of -10 would be 5. So you can go here and go up 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then go left 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then right there, that right there is your midpoint. Okay, that right there is going to be 0.3, 3. So now you know where the middle is to bisect this segment. Okay, so now what you can do from there is to make them perpendicular, use the slope that we just created and do the work from there. So if the slope, what we said, was -10/8, that simplifies to -5/4. What's the rule to be perpendicular? Well, change the signs and flip. So then you can just count 1, 2, 3, 4, and write 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you have there's your line there graphed. Okay, a little sloppy, a little ugly. Remember, you can use your point slope because we know that the slope is going to be 4. A point on that line we just identified to be 3. So y minus 3, intercept. You could go ahead and solve this, but don't, because then you're more likely to make a mistake, and they didn't tell you which form they wanted you to have it in. So from a graph, that's what you could do. Then you could always do it using the formulas that we just did on the last page that you should have an idea of. First thing you're going to do is you're going to want to find the midpoint. The midpoint formula would say add x1, y1, x2, y2, and then that would be -2 plus 8 divided by 2, 7. Now, the slope is going to be 7, -1 minus 7, okay? And then you're going to have 8 minus -2. That's going to be -8/10. Did I do the other one backwards? I might have. This is going to simplify to -4/5. So that is this slope here. That's what we identified before. Okay, y over x. I don't know if I did it backwards before. Now, take -4/5 and be perpendicular. Change the sign, positive. Flip it, and it's going to be 5/4. Okay, so this right here, that's your perpendicular. No. No, you don't change both sides. You only just change the sign. Because if you have a -4 over -5, it's the same as being just +4/5. Okay, so you're only changing one side. So the slope is going to be 5/4 for this line. And if you look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, that still creates, okay, this positive slope. And then y minus what we had there, 3, equals 5/4 x minus 3. So it's kind of your same answer there. All right, so those are two ways that you could do it. So either just getting it straight from a graph, like we just did there, or knowing the midpoint and slope formula to find those two things there. Example 4 is the same as example 3, so we don't have to do it again. So you have two choices, okay? So that's really all we're going to do with this lesson, because the next couple questions are just practice questions. So before I go on to those practice questions for the stuff that we were working on before we left, does anybody have any questions on creating a perpendicular bisector from two endpoints? Okay, again, you can do them either from a graph, by just graphing it, or you have to know the midpoint formula and the slope formula. Okay. All right, so here are our practice questions. Okay, so this goes back to all the stuff that we were learning before we left. So segment AB has endpoints of -5, 2 and 7, -6. What is the midpoint of that segment? So we talked about the midpoint formula before. x1 plus x2 divided by 2, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So if I'm going to do that, if I label the first point as x1 and y1 and the second point as x2 with y2. Practice questions are for homework. Oh, but then I would be done. Ms. Holden says that this should be your homework now. No, I think we should do it and then make them do those other questions for the practice worksheet for homework, because they don't remember any of this. So here we go. Practice. All right, so here we go. Now we are going to do Miss Holden. There's a delay. You have to text me if you want me to do something. So then I'm done. She's getting very angry because she's writing at me on caps lock. All right, so then I guess that means that we're done. So here's what I'll do then instead. Wait, okay, oh, jeez. So all right, so here's what we'll do instead. I'll go through, I'll give you the idea of what you need to do for each one of these questions so you're not too lost on them. Then you practice this, and then we can go over these questions tomorrow. So here you go, midpoint. Use your midpoint formula. Okay, here you have partitioning questions. Okay, remember partitioning, guarantee 100%. That's going to be on the regions if you even take one. To find it's going to be a point, right? So to find the x point, what you're going to do is you're going to take the first point and you are going to add it to whatever the fraction is, and then you're going to do x2 minus x1. And then you're going to do the same thing for the y. And then you're going to take what your fraction is and you're going to subtract x2 minus x1. Now the ratio, remember that's not the fraction. You have to convert that to a fraction by doing 2 over 7. The 7 comes from adding. Always works like this in ratio, 2 plus 5. Okay, for distance, you're going to use your distance formula. So that's square root x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Okay, plug in your points, and you'll be able to get your distance between the two. Here's midpoint, so it's the same formula, but a little bit different, because I am now telling you the midpoint, and I want to know, well, what's the other point? So if you were graphing that, it would say like, okay, here's A, here's the midpoint, and now the question is, well, what is B? So if you're going to do that one, it would be negative, it would be, this is your midpoint, one end is 2 plus what divided by 2 is equal to negative 3, because that is the midpoint. It would be 5 plus what divided by 2 is equal to, oh, I did it again. 8 plus y2 divided by what is equal to 5. And remember, the easiest way to do a question like that is to put this over 1 and to cross multiply. Alrighty, next. The endpoints of the diameter of a circle. So again, if you're drawing a picture, okay, if you're drawing a picture, then they're telling you that this point here is D, and then this point here is F. And it says find the area of the circle in terms of pi. So to find area, you have to do pi times the radius squared. Well, the radius goes from here to here. So you don't have the radius, you have the diameter. So what you would have to do here is you would have to find the distance, and then remember to go from diameter to radius, you want to divide by 2. Don't round, and then that number is going to go right in there for your answer. And then this last question is the one that we have been working on. Okay? So what you could do is you can work on that. Okay, and then I can give you the answers to those ones now that you know exactly what you're supposed to do. What we're going to do here is, Miss Holden's texting me saying that I can continue. So I'll just do it. All right. So let's see if you got all that. So first one, going to be negative 5 plus 7 divided by 2. Over here, for the y, it's going to be 2 plus negative 6 divided by 2. Okay, this one here that's going to be a 1. This one here is going to be a 2, and then that's your midpoint. It is 1, 2. plugging it all in. Any questions so far? Anybody? All right, here's our partitioning question. Okay, how do I know which one is x1 and which one should be x2, which is the first point, which is the second part? Okay, just make sure you're started from where you're starting from. So A, B is drawn, so you're starting at A. Okay, so that has to be your first point. So then you're going to do 0 plus 2 over 7, and then you got to go x2 minus x1. So that's going to be negative 7 minus 0. Then for the y, you're going to do 10 plus 2 over 7, and then you're going to do y2 minus y1. That's going to be negative 4 minus 10. Okay? Okay, don't go crazy trying to do math. Just plug it into your calculator. So right here, we're going to get a negative 2. And then right here, we're going to get a positive 6. And so your answer is negative 2, 6. Okay, so basically it'll look like this. Here's A, here's B, and then C gets partitioned 2/7 of the way. So it'd be like somewhere right around there at negative 2, 6. All right. This one here, label your x1, y1, x2, y2. All right, and then if you're going to go ahead and plug it in, you're going to plug in negative 2 minus 4 squared, and then you're going to plug in 6 minus negative 12 squared. You just got to be careful with it, okay? Without really trying to do too much of the math, use your calculator. You just plug this number right here, this whole big thing into your calculator, and that's going to be around, I think it was like 360. Rounded to the nearest tenth, it was 18.97, so we'll just call it like a 19.0. Okay, that's what we have there. All right, here we go. For this one here, when we set it up, you're going to be doing some cross multiplying, which is usually the easier way to do it. So you're going to have 2 plus x2 equals negative 6. Subtract the 2 on both sides, you're going to get negative 8. Do it over here, negative 5 times 2, that's negative 10. And then that's 8 plus y2 on the other side. Move the 8, and you're going to get I have negative 18. Okay, so then my partition would be negative 8. And what do we say over here? Like negative 18. So that's that for 4. This one gets very messy. Alright, so what are you going to do for this one is like we did before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 1 minus 5 squared. Then I'm going to do 4 minus negative 3 squared. Put this into your calculator. Put that into your calculator, and you're going to get 65. This represents your diameter. Divide it by 2, and then you're going to get a really long decimal that you're just going to copy in right here. Take that number, just put it into your calculator, which I emailed the school to try to get it onto my computer so that I can do it with you so that you can see. But that's going to give you 16.25, and then that's going to be pi. You're going to leave the pi like that. So it's 16.25 pi. No, I'm teaching.
What are you saying?
5 minutes. Kids everywhere. We're in quarantine. All right, last one here.
What?
Graph, -6, 1. Now, a lot of the times it's going to tell you that the use of the graph is optional, so don't have to worry about using it. And then here's 2, 5. And then remember, what you can do is you can go ahead, count this slope, find the half of it, and then the half of it's going to show you where your midpoint is. Then once you have the slope, you can find his perpendicular bisector by switching the sign. Okay, so here's how to do it by hand. First, you're going to find the midpoint. -6 plus 2 divided by 2. 1 plus 5 divided by 2. So that's going to be -2, 3. And then look, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. That's what I hit right there. Then we have to find his slope. That's going to be 5 minus 1, 2 minus -6. This is going to be 4 over 8, simplifies to 1/2. Use point slope formula, which would be y minus y1, mx minus x1. Y minus, now we have to use the point that is on the line, which would be his midpoint. That's going this way. So that's going to be 3 equals -2 x plus 2. Because remember, when you're plugging in from point slopes form, you're taking those points and you're changing its signs. Okay, and that is done. Okay, so here is what you should do. And don't touch it. Here's what you should do. On the website, there is going to be a practice worksheet that you can work on. Go to cimath.com, go to the geometry tab, either print or write down those questions, go through them, we'll post the answers to those, and then we'll go over those answers on a live and answer any questions that you have. And then after that, we'll move on to the next lesson. So before I sign out, does anybody have any final questions? This is where they ask me questions. Are you even thinking? They don't ask it. They're not as crazy as the 9th graders' questions. Okay.
How does it feel writing them?
You can see in a little while.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's a little sloppy.
It's all very sloppy. That he has to learn how to write with it.
Is that why?
It is a why. Alright. We're good to go. Alright, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, hit the subscribe button down below, and I will see you.